What would happen if all the largest creatures on Earth disappeared tomorrow? Would the world become more peaceful? Or would life collapse completely? 66 million years ago, our planet faced that very question. A giant meteorite crashed into Earth, ending the more than 160 million year era of dinosaurs. In a very short period of time, according to geological scales, about 75% of the planet's species vanished. But the amazing thing is that the story didn't end there. Earth didn't die, it was reborn. From the ashes of the old world, a completely new world emerged. A world so strange that if modern humans were transported back to that time, we would almost not recognize it as our familiar planet. A world where crocodiles lived near the Arctic Circle. A world where giant birds became the most fearsome predators on land. A world where a snake as long as a bus can swallow crocodiles whole. And it is in that very world that the first ancestors of humankind began to appear. This is the story of the Paleogene, the strangest period after the dinosaurs disappeared. Approximately 66 million years ago, a meteorite with a diameter of 10 to 15 kilometers crashed into what is now Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. The energy released was unimaginably immense. Scientists estimate the impact was equivalent to billions of atomic bombs exploding simultaneously. In a matter of seconds, the ground melted. Massive earthquakes swept across the planet. Tsunami waves hundreds of meters high swept across the oceans. Forests on multiple continents burned. The sky turned black. But the most terrifying thing wasn't the moment of impact. The most terrifying thing was the years that followed. Trillions of tons of dust and sulfur were propelled into the atmosphere. Sunlight was blocked. Global temperatures plummeted. Photosynthesis almost ceased. Plants began to die. As plants died, herbivores died with them. As herbivores disappeared, predators also became extinct. In a very short time, the world that once belonged to the dinosaurs completely collapsed. If you could stand on Earth at that moment, the scene before you would resemble a post-apocalyptic planet. No more roars of colossal creatures. No more lush green forests stretching to the horizon. Only dust and ashes, coldness, and silence. But in that darkness, a new competition was quietly unfolding. A question arose. Who would be the next ruler of Earth? When we talk about evolution, we often think that the strongest organism will win. But the Paleogene proved otherwise. The giant creatures disappeared. The survivors were the tiny ones. Not ancient trees, not rainforests, but the simplest plants. They were the pioneers paving the way for life to return. Meanwhile, underground, tiny mammals survived. They were only the size of mice or weasels. They ate whatever they could find. They burrowed. They were nocturnal. And most importantly, they required very little energy. In a world of food scarcity, this was a huge advantage. Their survival sends a crucial lesson from nature. When the world changes abruptly, strength is no longer an advantage. Adaptability is what determines everything. The next millions of years witnessed the slow resurgence of the planet. Bacteria and fungi began to decompose the dead. The land gradually became fertile again. Trees grew. Ecosystems were slowly rebuilt. But this new world would no longer be like the old one, because the thrones left behind by the dinosaurs were still vacant, and mammals were about to take the stage. For over 160 million years under the dinosaurs, mammals were merely supporting characters. They were small, weak, hiding in the shadows. But after the catastrophe, everything changed. Ecological gaps appeared everywhere. No more giant herbivores, no more dominant predators. Nature needed replacements, and mammals seized that opportunity. Some species possessed enormous skulls. Some had teeth capable of crushing bone. Others bore strange horns never before seen in history. Like an inventor granted unlimited creative power, evolution began to experiment with every possibility. The Paleogene gradually became a giant laboratory, a planet where all the old rules were broken. But as mammals flourished, Earth was about to enter another even more astonishing catastrophe. A catastrophe that would transform the planet into an unprecedentedly hot world. And it was this extreme environment that would give birth to the most terrifying creatures of the entire Paleogene period. About 56 million years ago, just as the ecosystem was stabilizing after the catastrophic extinction event, Earth entered a completely different crisis. This time it wasn't ice, it was temperature. In a short period on the geological scale, the global average temperature rose by 9 to 14 degrees Fahrenheit. This event is now known as the PETM, Paleocene-Eocene Thermal Maximum. But the frightening thing wasn't just the temperature increase, it was the rate of increase. Scientists believe that trillions of tons of carbon were released into the atmosphere through volcanic activity and massive methane deposits on the seabed. The greenhouse effect spread rapidly. The oceans warmed, tropical forests expanded. The climate became hot and humid on a global scale. If you lived at that time, you wouldn't recognize the polar regions we know today, because near the Arctic there weren't endless ice fields. Instead, there were lush green forests, swamps, rivers, and even ancient relatives of crocodiles. Just imagine that. A crocodile living near the Arctic Circle. Sounds like science fiction, but it was once a reality. Across the planet, plants exploded. Flowering plants flourished like never before. Insects multiplied at an alarming rate. Forests became the most complex biological networks since the dinosaurs disappeared. But while nature was thriving, extreme temperatures also created conditions for gigantic creatures to emerge, and one of them would become the greatest nightmare ever to crawl the Earth. If you think today's anacondas are scary, prepare to forget that. About 58 million years ago, in the hot, humid swamps of South America, a giant creature began to dominate the food chain. Its name was Titanoboa, the largest snake to ever exist in Earth's history. Titanoboa grew to between 43 and nearly 50 feet long and weighed well over 1 US ton. Its body was so thick that an adult could barely wrap their arms around it. It didn't need venom. It didn't need speed. It didn't need claws. Its only weapon was its incredible muscular strength. When attacking, Titanoboa would coil tightly around its prey. Each constriction prevented blood flow. Within minutes, the victim would lose consciousness, then suffocate. Interestingly, Titanoboa wasn't just an animal. It was also living evidence of an ancient climate. Scientists believed that such a massive body could only exist in an extremely hot environment. In other words, Titanoboa's size reflected the temperature of Earth at that time. A planet much hotter than today. A planet where nature constantly tested the limits of life. But Titanoboa wasn't the only dominant predator. New predators were emerging in the skies and on the land as well. When we hear the word bird, we usually think of small, harmless creatures. But in the Paleogene, birds were once fearsome predators. One of the most famous was Gastornis. Standing over 6.5 feet tall and weighing more than 220 pounds, it moved through tropical forests like a feathered tank. For years, scientists believed Gastornis was the apex predator. Although modern studies suggest it may have been omnivorous or herbivorous, its appearance still made any creature wary. But in South America, another group of birds was far more fearsome. These were the terror birds. These flightless giants could grow to nearly 10 feet tall. They possessed incredibly strong legs, a curved beak like an axe blade, and speed sufficient to keep up with most mammals of the time. For millions of years, they were the dominant predators in South America. It's an interesting paradox of evolution. The dinosaurs are gone, but their descendants continue to dominate the world in a new form. Birds. However, while the monsters are stealing all the attention, another group of tiny creatures is quietly growing in the shadows. And they are the most important characters in the story. Amid a world of 50-foot-long snakes, 10-foot-tall birds, and giant mammals, our ancestors were almost invisible. One of the earliest candidates was Purgatorius, a creature so small it could fit in the palm of your hand. It had no sharp fangs, no superior strength, no incredible speed, but it had something extremely valuable: a developing brain, forward-looking eyes that helped it estimate distances, flexible limbs that helped it cling to branches, improving motor coordination. These small changes seemed unremarkable, but over tens of millions of years, they changed the history of Earth. As giants competed on size, our ancestors developed the ability to learn. As predators dominated on strength, our ancestors learned to adapt. It was the quietest revolution in evolutionary history. No one noticed. No one paid attention. But the future of the planet is being written by these tiny creatures. If the Chicxulub meteorite hadn't struck Earth 66 million years ago, perhaps dinosaurs would still be dominating the planet. And perhaps there would never have been human civilization. The extinction of the dinosaurs wasn't just the end of one world, it was the beginning of our world. And who knows, millions of years from now, looking back at the present era, another species might view humans the way we view ancient dinosaurs. Because on this Earth, nothing lasts forever. Only change is eternal. If you enjoy stories about Earth's history, prehistoric creatures, and the mysteries of evolution, don't forget to like, share the video, and subscribe to the channel to join us on our next exploration journeys. Not all fossils are the same. Most are just bones, the final traces left behind long after life has disappeared. But amber is different. Millions of years ago, a drop of tree resin flowed down a trunk and trapped whatever happened to be there at that exact moment. These creatures weren't buried or broken down. They were sealed, almost perfectly preserved. Every leg, every strand, even traces of color. But the most remarkable thing isn't what they look like, it's when they were captured. Because amber doesn't just preserve organisms, it preserves the moment they were alive. A movement in progress, a behavior unfolding, a story interrupted. This isn't death, it's a moment that never ended. In this video, we're exploring some of the most mysterious and fascinating amber discoveries ever found. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more prehistoric mysteries. Our first specimen looks small, but it may be one of the clearest examples of how evolution can stand still. This is Yantarogecko balticus, a tiny gecko preserved in amber dating back roughly 54 to 34 million years. What makes this fossil especially remarkable is that only the front half of the body is preserved. Its head is intact, its limbs clearly visible, and its skin still covered in fine scales. There are no movable eyelids, just like modern geckos. And most striking of all, its toes are equipped with adhesive pads. These pads allowed it to grip tightly onto surfaces like tree bark and branches, moving with ease through its forest environment. These pads aren't just a surface feature. When scientists examined the structure of these toes, they found something unexpected. The design is almost identical to what we see today. After tens of millions of years, it has barely changed. This suggests something profound. Not every part of evolution is about constant transformation. Sometimes a biological design becomes so effective that it simply remains. It works, and so it stays. However, identifying exactly where this animal fits in the gecko family tree is not so straightforward. When it was first described, it was placed within the gecko family Geckonidae. There's another layer to this discovery. This gecko was found in what is now northern Europe, a region that today is far too cold for such reptiles to thrive. But during the early Eocene, the Earth was much warmer. Forests stretched across these northern regions, creating environments where creatures like this could live and climb freely. So what you're looking at is not just a fossil. It's a snapshot of a different world, and a design that has endured through it. But not every organism trapped in amber tells such a straightforward story. The next discovery is where amber stops being simple and starts becoming misleading. This is Oculodentavis congre, a tiny creature preserved in amber from Myanmar, dating back around 99 million years. When it was first revealed, it was described as the smallest dinosaur ever found. Its skull measures barely 2 centimeters. It has large eyes, a narrow bird-like snout, and proportions that seem to place it close to early feathered dinosaurs such as Archaeopteryx and J. halornis. Based on its size, it likely weighed around 28 grams, comparable to the smallest living bird today, the bee hummingbird. At first glance, everything pointed in the same direction, but that interpretation did not last. When scientists took a closer look, using high-resolution CT scans to reconstruct the skull in 3 dimensions, cracks began to appear in the story. The eye structure was unusual, more like that of a lizard than a bird. The skull showed features inconsistent with any known dinosaur lineage. And perhaps most telling, the jaws contained around 30 teeth arranged in a pattern not seen in birds, but common in reptiles. The conclusion was unavoidable. This was not a bird. It was not even a dinosaur. It was a lizard. In this case, a small predatory lizard evolved a skull shape that closely resembled that of early birds. Large eyes for visual hunting. A tapered snout for snapping at fast-moving prey. A lightweight structure suited for life among branches. It likely lived in trees using its vision and speed to hunt insects in a dense forest canopy. This is where amber becomes both powerful and deceptive. It preserves detail with incredible precision, but those details can still be misread. Even with one of the most well-preserved skulls ever found, interpretation is not always straightforward. And when we begin to understand these fossils correctly, amber starts to reveal something much larger. Not just individual creatures, but entire ecosystems preserved in motion. One of the clearest examples of this is Electrorana limoe, a tiny frog trapped in amber from Myanmar, dating back around 99 million years. Unlike most vertebrates found in amber, this specimen is remarkably complete. You can see the shape of its limbs, the position of its body, and even traces of soft tissue that rarely survive in other types of fossils. Finds like this are extremely rare. Small vertebrates, especially animals with soft, fragile bodies, almost never survive the fossilization process. But amber changes that. It captures them in place, preserving not just their structure, but the exact moment they were caught. This frog tells us something important about the world it lived in. Frogs depend on moisture. They need water, or at least a humid environment to survive. Its presence within the resin suggests that during the mid-Cretaceous, a dense forest ecosystem with plenty of shaded areas and nearby water sources existed. This was not an arid landscape. It was a warm, humid world where insects, reptiles, and amphibians interacted within the same space. So this is more than just a small animal frozen in resin. It is a connection point, a fragile organism that helps link entire chapters of life on Earth. But not every organism in this ancient ecosystem was living freely. Some were being controlled in ways that feel almost impossible. In amber deposits dating back around 99 million years to the mid-Cretaceous period, scientists have discovered some of the earliest known examples of parasitic fungi infecting insects. These pieces of amber preserve a moment that is both rare and disturbing. Fungi grow directly out of the bodies of their hosts. Two ancient species have been identified from these specimens. Paleoophiocordisceps gerontiformicae, found emerging from the body of a young ant, and Paleoophiocordisceps ironomiae, found on a fly. Both are now extinct, but they share key features with a group of fungi that still exists today, known as Ophiocordyceps. This connection is important. Modern Ophiocordyceps are known for their ability to infect insects and alter their behavior. Once inside the body, the fungus spreads gradually. The host continues to move and feed as normal at first, but over time its behavior begins to change. In infected ants, for example, the fungus can drive the host to leave its colony, climb vegetation, and lock its jaws onto a leaf or stem in what is often called a death grip. From that position, the fungus consumes the body from within and eventually grows outward, releasing spores into the air to infect others. What makes these amber fossils so remarkable is that they show this type of relationship existed nearly 100 million years ago. This means this form of parasitic control is ancient, deeply rooted, and highly successful. These fungi are not limited to a single host. Even today, they are known to infect a wide range of insects, including ants, flies, beetles, cicadas, and more. This broad host range allows them to act as powerful regulators within ecosystems, shaping insect populations over time. And they did not evolve just once. Parasitic fungi like these appear across multiple groups, suggesting that this strategy of controlling another organism has evolved independently again and again. This changes how we think about survival. Evolution is not only about strength, speed, or adaptation. Sometimes it is about influence, about control. But amber does not only record death, it also preserves moments of life still unfolding. Amber does not only preserve struggle or control. Sometimes it captures something far more intimate. One extraordinary example comes from Burmese amber, where scientists discovered a previously unknown species preserved in the middle of courtship behavior. This species was named Yijin platycnemus huangai, a type of damselfly that lived during the age of dinosaurs. What makes this fossil remarkable is not just the insect itself, but what it was doing in its final moments. The specimen appears to be waving its legs, frozen mid-motion. These were not ordinary limbs. They were highly specialized, enlarged, and spread outward in a striking display. Their shape has been compared to small paddles or beans, designed to be seen. This was not random movement. It was a signal. In modern relatives, similar behaviors still exist. Male damselflies in groups like Platycnemididae and Chlorociphidae use their legs as visual displays during mating season. Some wave bright-colored limbs to attract females, while others use them to warn off rival males. In species such as Platycypha caligata, males even use different sides of their legs for different signals, one for attracting mates and another for territorial communication. What we see in this amber sample suggests that this type of complex behavior existed a very long time ago. Yijin platycnemus huangai shows clear signs of sexual dimorphism. It may have hovered in front of a female, spreading and waving its legs in a precise sequence before mating. And then, in a single moment, everything stopped. The resin flowed, surrounded the insect, and sealed that behavior in place. What remains is not just a body, but a performance. A ritual that had evolved over millions of years, captured at the exact moment it was being expressed. This tells us something profound. Reproductive behavior, including visual signaling and courtship displays, is not a recent development. It is ancient, deeply rooted, and remarkably consistent across time. Amber reveals something that most fossils cannot. It does not just preserve anatomy, it preserves intention, movement, interaction. What we are witnessing is not just an insect. It is a moment of communication, a strategy shaped by evolution, still recognizable today. However, this amber also bears a somber sign. A moment intended for the creation of life became the final moment ever recorded. As we move deeper into these amber-preserved worlds, a different pattern begins to emerge. Not everything is strange. Not everything is unfamiliar. Some things look almost unchanged. One example comes from beetles related to the family Ptilodactylidae, preserved in Cretaceous amber from Myanmar nearly 100 million years ago. At first glance, they do not seem unusual. The body structure is clear. Legs, antennae, even fine surface details are sharply defined. But the real significance lies deeper, especially in their larval forms. In several amber pieces, scientists discovered multiple beetle larvae with a very distinctive body plan known as elateriform. These larvae show elongated bodies, segmented structures, and specialized tail features. In some specimens, the rear end shows paired lobes with hook-like structures, a morphology strikingly similar to modern members of the family Ptilodactylidae. This is important because larval fossils are extremely rare. Most insects spend a large portion of their life cycle in immature stages, yet those stages are almost never preserved in detail. Amber changes that. It allows us to see not just the adult form, but the developmental stages that are usually invisible in the fossil record. What makes these findings even more compelling is how familiar they look. Despite being separated by nearly 100 million years, the overall structure of these larvae closely resembles modern relatives. This suggests that certain developmental designs were already established very early and have remained stable ever since. At the same time, these fossils reveal how diverse beetle larvae once were. Different body types, different ecological roles, and different survival strategies all existed within the same environment. Even within a single group, variation was already high, suggesting complex food webs and interactions. But through all that diversity, one thing stands out: stability. Some insect lineages reached a form that simply worked, efficient, adaptable, and resilient enough to persist through massive environmental changes. So what you are looking at is not just an ancient insect. You are looking at a design that has endured almost unchanged for tens of millions of years. But not every amber discovery is fully accepted, and some raise more questions than answers. Pterosaurs are among the most unlikely animals to ever be preserved in amber. They were larger, stronger, and capable of flight. Unlike insects or tiny forest creatures, they could easily escape flowing resin before it hardened. Most species, including forms like Rhamphorhynchus, lived in coastal or open environments, far from the tree trunks where resin was produced. And yet, there have been claims. Some specimens have been suggested to contain pterosaur remains. At first glance, certain features appear convincing. Wing structures, elongated digits, even skull fragments. None of these specimens are widely accepted, and they have sparked some controversy. Some lack formal scientific description. Others raise questions about interpretation, preservation, or even authenticity. The line between discovery and misidentification becomes very thin when dealing with such rare and unusual fossils. Could small pterosaurs have been trapped in resin under the right conditions? Whether these controversial specimens truly represent pterosaurs remains unclear. So what do you think? Could pterosaurs really be hidden inside amber, waiting to be confirmed? Or are these just illusions shaped by expectation? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching.